The bright morning sun couldn't pierce through the thick smoke that covered the sky above New York. Tom Miller stood on the rooftop of his apartment building, watching the massive alien ships hover above the city. They looked like giant crystals, catching what little light made it through the clouds and breaking it into rainbow patterns across the buildings below. It had only taken 3 days. 3 days since the first ships appeared. 3 days for humanity's defenses to crumble. The military had tried everything: missiles, jets, even nuclear weapons. But the crystalline ships had some kind of force field that turned their weapons into harmless light shows. Tom remembered watching the news as every major city fell under their control, one by one. Now, on the 4th day, the aliens finally showed themselves. They called themselves the Watchers. They stood nearly 10 feet tall, their bodies made of the same crystal-like material as their ships. When they moved, light danced through their transparent forms, creating patterns that hurt human eyes to look at. All humans will gather in designated areas for processing. The announcement boomed through the city. The voice sounded like breaking glass and ringing bells. Resistance is unnecessary. You will serve a greater purpose. Tom clutched the small bag containing his few belongings. As a military engineer, he knew better than most how completely Earth had lost. He had watched advanced weapon systems fail, communications networks crash, and military bases fall silent. The Watchers' technology was simply too far beyond anything humans had ever seen. Below, people streamed out of buildings, moving towards Central Park as directed. Some cried, others walked in shocked silence, but most just looked lost. Tom joined the crowd, his mind already working on understanding what he saw. The way the aliens moved, how their technology functioned. He noticed everything. It was a habit from his engineering days that he couldn't shake. At the park, the Watchers had set up processing stations. Their crystalline forms towered over the humans as they sorted them into groups. Tom noticed they seemed to focus on people's physical attributes and how they responded to simple tests. Group 7. A Watcher pointed at Tom with a crystalline arm that chimed like wind bells. Strong, alert, useful for mining operations. Tom moved to join the growing cluster of Group 7. He stood next to a tall man who introduced himself as James. "They're separating us based on something specific," James whispered. "Did you see how they react when people show any sign of technical knowledge?" Tom nodded slightly. He had noticed. The Watchers seemed to deliberately split up anyone who displayed too much understanding of technology or science. They were being careful to prevent organized resistance. A female Watcher, taller than the others, approached Group 7. Light rippled through her form in complex patterns as she spoke. "I am Commander First Light. You will serve in the crystal mines of Colony 3. Your primitive species has strength and basic tool-using capabilities that make you suitable for this task." Tom kept his face blank, but his mind raced. The aliens clearly thought humans were simple laborers, barely more intelligent than animals. This could be useful. He glanced at James, seeing the same understanding in the other man's eyes. The first transport arrived. Another crystal ship, but smaller than the invasion fleet. As they were led aboard, Tom saw a woman being added to their group. She caught his eye and gave a slight nod. Something in her alert gaze told him she was thinking along the same lines he was. As Earth disappeared below them, Tom made 3 important observations. First, the Watchers' technology seemed to be entirely crystal-based. Second, they clearly underestimated human intelligence and adaptability. And third, that might be their biggest mistake. Commander First Light's voice chimed through the ship. "You will now serve a greater purpose in the Watcher Empire. Be grateful for this opportunity to be useful." Tom looked around at his fellow humans. He saw fear in their eyes, yes, but he also saw determination, intelligence, and a spark of defiance carefully hidden behind blank expressions. The Watchers thought they had conquered a simple species of laborers. They would learn just how wrong they were. Colony 3 looked like a forest made of crystal. Huge spires of blue-white crystal rose from the moon's surface, glowing softly in the dim light of a distant sun. The mining base sat in a valley between these towers, its crystalline buildings reflecting the glow from above. 2 weeks had passed since Tom arrived. Every day, he and the other humans worked in the deep mines, breaking off precisely marked sections of crystal that the Watchers needed. The work was hard, but it gave them plenty of chances to watch their captors. "Keep working, primitive ones," the Overseer's chiming voice echoed through the mine shaft. Tom carefully struck his mining tool against the crystal wall, watching how different parts made different sounds. He had noticed that the Watchers seemed to react to certain crystal tones. During their short rest break, Tom sat next to James in the miners' eating area. The woman he had noticed on the transport, whose name was Kate, joined them. They had developed a careful friendship, speaking in normal tones about simple things while their eyes exchanged deeper messages. "The crystals in Section B sing differently," Kate said quietly, pretending to just make conversation. Tom noticed how she emphasized the word sing. He had seen her watching the crystals too, especially when the Watchers used their sound-based weapons during guard changes. James nodded, chewing his food slowly. "The Overseers don't like it when we hit certain spots too hard." He had been mapping the mine tunnels in his head, remembering which areas the Watchers avoided. A shadow fell over their table. Commander First Light stood there, her crystalline form throwing rainbow patterns across the room. "You three work well together. Good cooperation for primitives. You will now work in Deep Section C." Tom kept his face carefully blank. Deep Section C was where the Watchers stored their most important crystals. This was an opportunity, but they had to be careful. The commander might be testing them. "Thank you, Great One," Tom said, using the simple, respectful tone the Watchers expected. "We are happy to be useful." After their shift in Deep Section C, Tom made an exciting discovery. While cleaning his tools, he noticed that some crystal dust had stuck to his sleeve. When he moved, it created tiny flashes of light at frequencies he could see, but the Watchers didn't react to it all. That night in the sleeping quarters, Tom shared his discovery with Kate and James. Kate's eyes lit up. "The crystals they're having us mine," she whispered, "they're not just building materials. I think they're components for their weapons and ships." "And they can't see all the frequencies we can see," James added, keeping his voice low. "Just like they don't notice when we tap messages on the mining tools." They had started developing a tapping code that sounded like normal mining work to the Watchers. Other humans had caught on, and a silent network of communication was growing through the colony. Tom pulled out a small crystal shard he had carefully hidden. "Watch this," he said, tapping it gently. The crystal produced a tone so quiet it was barely audible, but all the lights in their quarter flickered slightly. Kate's eyes widened. "Their whole technology system is connected through crystal resonance," she whispered. "And they think we're too primitive to understand it." A group of Watchers passed by their sleeping area, their forms humming with internal light. The humans quickly pretended to sleep, but Tom's mind was racing with possibilities. The Watchers had made 3 big mistakes. They had put humans exactly where they could learn about the crystal technology. They hadn't bothered to hide how their systems worked because they thought humans were too simple to understand, and they had kept intelligent humans together. As Tom drifted off to sleep, he heard the distant hum of the colony's crystal power core. The sound that had once seemed alien and threatening now felt like an opportunity. The Watchers thought they were. 3 months into their captivity, the humans had learned more than the Watchers could imagine. Tom sat in his usual spot during the meal break, carefully watching a group of Overseers talking near the crystal power core. Their chiming language once sounded like random noise, but now he could understand most of it. "The primary resonance chamber requires adjustment," one Watcher said to another. "These primitive workers are efficient but careless with the harmonic frequencies." Kate slid onto the bench across from Tom, her face showing nothing but tired submission. Under the table, her fingers tapped a quick message on her leg. "Made breakthrough. Light patterns are language too." James joined them, sitting heavily as if exhausted. Only Tom and Kate noticed how his eyes darted around the room, mapping the positions of every watcher. The three of them had become experts at hiding their intelligence behind tired, simple expressions. The sun cycle grows shorter, a watcher announced, its crystalline form pulsing with light patterns that Tom now recognized as emphasis marks in their language. Night shift will begin earlier. Return to workstations. As they walked back to their mining section, Tom thought about how much they had learned. The Watchers' entire society was built on crystal technology. Their weapons used sound frequencies that traveled through crystal networks. Their ships were powered by crystal engines. Even their bodies seemed to be some kind of living crystal. In the deep mine, Kate worked close to Tom. Between the rhythmic strikes of their mining tools, she whispered, "Their light patterns don't just show emotion. They're sharing data, technical information. I've been watching during repair sessions." Tom nodded slightly, keeping his mining rhythm steady. He had noticed how the Watchers' bodies flashed complex patterns when they worked on their technology. What looked like beautiful but random light shows were actually detailed technical instructions. James worked nearby, his mining tool tapping out a more complex message. Other humans learning too. Network growing. 10 more understand language now. The humans had created their own network throughout the colony. What started as simple tap codes had grown into a complex communication system. Workers traded information during shift changes. Cleaning crews carried messages between sections. Even the sounds of mining tools had become a secret language. A sudden commotion drew their attention. A young human worker had accidentally struck a crystal at the wrong angle, creating a sharp resonance that made nearby watchers vibrate uncomfortably. Commander Firstlight stormed into the section, her form pulsing with angry light patterns. "Foolish primitive," she chimed harshly. "You risk damaging the harmonic balance." Tom watched carefully as the commander adjusted the crystal's frequency using her own body's resonance. There it was, the exact pattern of light and sound that controlled the crystal network. He added this new information to his growing mental database of Watcher technology. Later, in the quiet of the rest period, the three friends met in their usual corner. "The crystals they're having us mine," Kate whispered. "They're not just for weapons or ships. I think they're building something bigger." "A weapon?" James asked quietly. Tom shook his head. "A control system," he said. "I've been tracking the crystal shipments. They're creating a network that connects all their colonies. That's why the frequencies have to be so precise." Kate's eyes lit up with understanding. "And if something disrupted those frequencies, everything would fail," Tom finished. "Their weapons, their ships, maybe even their bodies." They fell silent as a Watcher patrol passed by, their crystalline forms casting shifting shadows. The patrol didn't notice how the humans' eyes tracked their light patterns, studying and learning. They didn't realize that with every passing day, their prisoners understood more about their technology than they thought possible. In the darkness of the sleeping period, Tom smiled slightly. The Watchers had given their prisoners the keys to their own defeat. They just didn't know it yet. 6 months had passed in Colony 3, and what started as a small group of observant humans had grown into something much larger. Tom walked through the mine tunnels with his tools, every step measured and humble, but his mind was tracking the complex web of communication that now connected all the human workers. "New shipment arrives today," a Watcher overseer announced, its crystalline form shimmering. "Maintenance crews will assist with unloading." James, now part of the maintenance crew, caught Tom's eye as he walked past. His hands made quick movements that looked like nervous fidgeting, but actually meant contact made with Colony 5. They know too. The humans had discovered that maintenance crews traveled between colonies for major crystal shipments. This had become their way of spreading knowledge. Each crew carried messages hidden in plain sight. Scratches on tools that looked like wear marks, but were actually coded messages. Patterns of dust on their clothes that contained information about Watcher weaknesses. During the meal break, Kate sat with her back to the overseers, pretending to be tired. "Colony 5 has figured out the resonance patterns," she whispered between bites. "They've been running their own experiments." Tom nodded slightly, watching a group of new human workers being led into the mines. The Watchers' biggest mistake was rotating workers between different sections. They thought it prevented humans from learning too much about any one area. Instead, it helped spread their growing understanding throughout the colony. Mining Section D needs additional workers, a watcher announced. The chiming voice echoed through the chamber, and Tom noticed how some crystals vibrated in response. He had learned to read these vibrations like a map of the colony's power system. As workers moved between sections, information moved with them. Tap codes hidden in mining rhythms, hand signals disguised as stretches, even the way they arranged their tools during breaks. Everything carried messages. The Watchers never noticed because they couldn't believe humans were capable of such complexity. James returned from his maintenance run, his face carefully blank, but his eyes bright with news. During the work shift, between the loud strikes of mining tools, he shared what he had learned. Colony 5 has found a way to alter the crystal frequencies. Tiny changes, too small for them to notice. Tom's hands kept working steadily, but his mind raced with possibilities. How many colonies are connected now? He asked through their tap code. 7, Kate answered through her mining rhythm. And growing. The maintenance crews from Colony 8 will be here next week. A group of watchers passed through their section, discussing technical specifications in their chiming language. Tom understood every word now, and he knew many others did too. The humans had learned to translate the complex harmonics and light patterns that made up watcher communication. Primitive species adapt well to labor, Commander Firstlight said to another watcher as they passed. See how they develop efficient mining rhythms. The humans kept working, their tools striking crystal in patterns that seemed random but carried clear messages. Keep watching. Keep learning. Stay patient. Stay strong. Later, in the quiet time before sleep, Tom met with Kate and James in their usual corner. The dim light made the crystal walls glow softly, creating shadows that hid their whispered conversation. The network is bigger than we ever hoped, James said quietly. Thousands of humans across 8 colonies, all working together, all learning. Kate nodded. And the Watchers still don't see it. They think we're just getting better at mining. Tom looked up at the crystal ceiling, thinking about the vast network of connections they had built. What had started as 3 people sharing observations had grown into an underground resistance that spanned multiple colonies. The Watchers had created their own crystal network to control their empire. And now, hidden beneath it, humans had built their own network of knowledge and resistance. Soon, Tom whispered, we'll have enough people who understand their technology. Then we can show them exactly how primitive we are. 1 year into their captivity, everything changed. Tom was working deep in mining Section C when he noticed something unusual about the crystal he had just cut. A tiny flaw, almost invisible, sent ripples of discord through the surrounding crystal matrix. He carefully made another cut, watching how the flaw affected the crystal's natural resonance. The Watchers had taught them to avoid such flaws, but Tom now understood why. These imperfections could change how the entire crystal network behaved. During the meal break, he met with Kate and James in their usual spot. Other trusted workers sat nearby, appearing to eat quietly while listening carefully. Look at this, Kate whispered, showing them a small crystal shard under the table. She had carefully carved microscopic patterns into its surface. When she tapped it gently, the lights in their section flickered in a way the Watchers didn't seem to notice. James leaned forward, pretending to be tired. The maintenance crews report similar discoveries in other colonies. We can change the crystals as we mine them. Small changes, changes they won't see until it's too late. Tom watched a group of Watchers walk by, their crystalline forms humming with what he now knew was pride and confidence. They never looked closely at the crystals the humans mined. Why would they? Primitives couldn't possibly understand the complex resonance patterns. We need to coordinate, Tom said quietly. Every colony, every mining section. The changes have to happen at exactly the right time, or their system will adapt. The next few weeks were busy. Messages traveled between colonies through maintenance crews, hidden in tool marks and dust patterns. Every human worker learned exactly how to create the tiny flaws in the crystals, flaws that would grow and spread through the Watchers' network like cracks in ice. Commander First Light visited their section one day, her form pulsing with satisfaction. "Production levels are excellent," she chimed to another overseer. "These primitives are finally reaching acceptable efficiency." The humans kept working, their mining tools tapping out the complex rhythms of their real communication. 3 more sections ready. Colony 7 reports success. Colony 5 standing by. Kate had mapped the entire crystal network, understanding how each section connected to the others. "The resonance patterns flow like rivers," she explained during a rest period. "If we change enough crystals in the right places, the discord will spread through their entire empire." James coordinated with maintenance crews, ensuring every colony would act at the same time. "We'll only get one chance," he reminded everyone. "Once they realize what's happening, they'll replace all the crystals and increase security." Tom worked on timing. The flaws had to grow slowly enough to avoid detection, but quickly enough to cause widespread failure when the time came. He watched how the Watchers maintained their crystal technology, learning the rhythms of their maintenance cycles. During a late work shift, Tom noticed something crucial. The Watchers were preparing for their biggest crystal shipment yet, one that would connect all their colonies into a single massive network. "That's our moment," he told Kate and James later. "When they activate the new network connections, the flaws will spread through everything at once. Their weapons, their ships, their communication systems, all of it will fail together." The plan spread through the human network, passed along in taps and whispers and subtle signs. Every colony confirmed their readiness. Every worker knew their part. "The master network activation begins in 3 days," James reported, his hands moving in their secret language as he cleaned his tools. "All colonies are prepared." Kate looked at the vast crystal cavern around them, seeing not just beautiful formations, but a complex system they had learned to understand and manipulate. "They never thought we could comprehend their technology," she whispered. "That will be their downfall." Tom watched the Watchers prepare for their network activation, their crystalline forms glowing with anticipation. They had no idea that their greatest achievement would become their greatest vulnerability. 3 days, he thought. In 3 days, we show them what humanity can really do. The day of the network activation arrived. Tom stood at his mining station, watching Watcher engineers make final adjustments to the crystal matrix. Their forms glowed with excitement, unaware that every human in the colony was silently counting down. "Begin primary network synchronization," Commander First Light announced, her crystalline body pulsing with pride. The massive central crystal began to hum, its resonance spreading through the connecting crystals like ripples in a pond. Kate worked nearby, her mining tools striking steady rhythms that secretly transmitted timing signals to other workers. The humans had spread throughout the colony, each positioned where they could cause the most disruption when the moment came. James and his maintenance crew stood ready near the power core, their tools cleaned and arranged in specific patterns. Every tool had been carefully modified over the past year, ready to amplify the coming crystal discord. "Secondary networks online," a Watcher engineer chimed, "beginning final integration sequence." Tom watched the power levels rise in the crystal network. The Watchers had taught them how to read these signs, another mistake they would soon regret. As the energy built up, the tiny flaws the humans had created began to vibrate. At first, the changes were subtle, a slight wobble in the resonance patterns, small fluctuations in the light flowing through the crystal matrices. The Watchers didn't notice, too focused on their grand network activation. "Integration at 50%, announced an engineer. All colonies reporting successful synchronization. That's when it started. The carefully crafted flaws began to multiply, their discordant frequencies spreading through the network faster than the Watchers could track. Crystal by crystal, section by section, the perfect harmony of their technology began to fragment. Commander First Light was the first to notice something wrong. Her form flickered as she tried to access the security systems. "Error in Sector 7, she chimed, her voice containing harmonics of concern. "Resonance patterns unstable." But it was too late. The humans had spent a year preparing for this moment. As the network tried to compensate for the growing discord, it only spread the carefully designed flaws faster. "Weapon systems offline," a watcher guard announced, their sound-based weapons producing only weak vibrations, security barriers failing. Tom gave the signal, 3 quick taps of his mining tool. Throughout the colony, humans dropped their active submission. They had mapped every blind spot in the Watcher's vision, every weakness in their crystal technology. Kate led a group to the power core, using their modified tools to amplify the destructive resonance. James and his maintenance crew disabled the communication systems, using their knowledge of crystal frequencies to block the Watcher's calls for help. "The primitives." Commander Firstlight's voice crackled with distortion. "They understand the technology. Stop them." But the Watchers couldn't stop what was already spreading through their entire empire. Every colony activated their modified crystals at the same time. The network they had built to control everything now worked against them, carrying waves of discord through their ships, weapons, and even their own crystalline bodies. Humans across all colonies emerged from their forced labor, moving with purpose and coordination that shocked their captors. They used the Watcher's own technology against them, turning crystal resonance into weapons, barriers, and shields. All security systems compromised, a Watcher engineer reported, their form flickering erratically. The network, it's spreading throughout the empire. Tom watched as the massive crystal structures that had imprisoned them began to sing with new frequencies, frequencies the humans had learned to control. The Watcher's perfect crystal harmony shattered, replaced by the disciplined chaos of human resistance. Commander Firstlight's form pulsed with desperate patterns as she realized the truth. The primitives she had enslaved had not only understood their technology, they had mastered it. And now, through the very network meant to strengthen the Watcher Empire, humanity's revenge spread at the speed of crystal resonance. Now, Tom thought as he watched their captors' power crumble, they'll learn what humans are really capable of. 3 days after the uprising, the Watcher Empire lay in ruins. Their once mighty crystal ships hung powerless in space, their perfect resonance shattered by the humans' carefully planned discord. In Colony 3, Tom stood with Kate and James in what used to be Commander Firstlight's control chamber. Reports coming in from all colonies, James said, working at a modified crystal control panel. The humans had quickly learned to adapt the Watcher's technology to their own use. The Empire's entire network is down. Earth is free. The other colonies are free. Through the crystal walls, they could see the Watchers being gathered in containment areas once used to hold human workers. The crystalline beings' forms flickered weakly, their power diminished by the destruction of their network. Commander Firstlight stood before a council of former human workers, her once brilliant form now dim and quiet. "We did not believe it possible," she chimed softly. "How did primitives understand our technology so completely?" Tom stepped forward. "You gave us everything we needed to learn. You thought we were too simple to understand, so you never hid your technology from us. You taught us to mine crystals, thinking we couldn't comprehend their true purpose. You spoke freely about your systems, believing we couldn't learn your language. And most importantly," Kate added, "you kept us together, allowing us to share knowledge and work as one. Humans are strongest when we cooperate, when we face challenges together." The news from Earth brought more victories. Human military forces had taken control of the Watcher bases, using the knowledge gained by the mining colonies to disable their defenses. Other alien species, also enslaved by the Watchers, had joined the uprising once they saw it succeeding. James worked with maintenance crews to establish new communication networks between the freed colonies. The crystal technology, now understood and modified by human engineers, worked even better than before. They had improved it, making it more stable and efficient. "The other species want to talk," Kate reported, reading the crystal communications. They're asking for our help in rebuilding, in making something better than the Watcher Empire. Tom looked at the former commander, seeing not an all-powerful overlord, but simply another being who had made the mistake of underestimating humanity. "We're offering you a choice," he told her. "Work with us to build something new, or be confined until we can return you to your home system." The Watchers, faced with the complete collapse of their empire and impressed by humanity's mastery of their own technology, chose cooperation. Their knowledge, combined with human innovation, and the unique perspectives of other alien species, led to incredible advances. 1 month after the uprising, Tom stood in the colony's observation dome, watching ships arrive from Earth. The crystal vessels now bore human modifications, their resonance patterns singing with new harmonies that combined the best of both species' understanding. "The first group of Earth scientists arrives today," Kate said, joining him at the window. "They're eager to learn everything we discovered about crystal technology." James laughed. "Wait until they see what we've done with the mining tools. Simple mining picks modified to control crystal resonance. The Watchers never saw that coming. The colony had changed. Where once humans worked as slaves, now they worked alongside their former captors and other alien species, all contributing their unique strengths and knowledge. The crystal mines, once a symbol of oppression, had become centers of learning and innovation. Tom watched as a group of human children, newly arrived from Earth, stared in wonder at a Watcher engineer teaching them about crystal harmonics. The future would be different than anyone had imagined. Not an empire built on dominance, but a community built on shared knowledge and respect. "We did more than just win our freedom," he said quietly. "We proved something the Watchers never understood. Humanity's greatest strength isn't in our ability to fight or resist. It's in our ability to learn, adapt, and turn our weaknesses into strengths." Behind him, the crystal walls of Colony 3 hummed with new frequencies, the sound of human and Watcher technology working in harmony, a symphony of victory and hope for the future.